Your Royal Highness Meghan Markle, congratulations to you both.
Thank you.
Can we start with the proposal and the actual moment of your engagement? When did it happen? How did it happen?
When the confrontation ended and Meghan's heels vanished into the distance, William didn't return to the memorial. He didn't mingle or offer polite reassurances. Instead, he turned to a senior aide and said 3 words, "My study, now." Within the hour, a select group gathered in his private office. The blinds were drawn. Catherine sat near the fireplace, pale but composed. Around her were 2 of William's most trusted advisors, a security liaison and a senior courtier who had served both Queen Elizabeth and King Charles. William listened to each witness's account of the fight. Details varied, but the core facts were undeniable. Meghan had insulted Catherine's character, questioned her public standing, and weaponized Diana's name. "This can't happen again," William said. Suggestions ranged from temporary distancing to a formal warning. William shook his head. "We've been here before. My duty is to my wife, my children, and the crown. There won't be a next time." His decision was final. Meghan Markle would never again attend a royal function, public or private, during his lifetime. Quietly enforced as a personal boundary, the order went into motion immediately. In that moment, William wasn't just protecting Catherine, he was defining his reign. This wasn't a sudden falling out or a single argument that spiraled out of control. The tension between Meghan Markle and Catherine, Princess of Wales, was the slow burn of a fire that had been smoldering for years. From the moment Meghan entered the royal sphere, their energies clashed in ways polite smiles couldn't disguise. Catherine, shaped by over a decade of preparation before officially becoming a royal, mastered the art of blending into the institution, her public life defined by consistency, restraint, and adherence to tradition. Meghan, by contrast, was a bolt of lightning. She was expressive, outspoken, and ready to challenge centuries-old customs the moment she believed they no longer served their purpose. The first public crack appeared during the now infamous 2018 bridesmaid dress fitting. Catherine had just given birth to Prince Louis and was exhausted, balancing the demands of motherhood with a high-profile royal wedding. Meghan wanted last-minute changes to Princess Charlotte's dress, reportedly over fit and material. The disagreement escalated to the point where one left the room in tears, the only question being, according to competing reports, which one it was. Meghan later claimed she comforted Catherine, while royal insiders insisted the opposite. Whatever the truth, both women walked away feeling wronged. The years that followed were peppered with friction. Royal aides noticed how rarely Meghan and Catherine engaged outside of official events. Meghan's circle believed Catherine was cold toward her, while Catherine's allies described Meghan as difficult and unpredictable. Media coverage deepened the rift. Positive headlines about Catherine's work on early childhood development were sometimes followed by Meghan's appearances on talk shows, speaking indirectly but pointedly about her struggles within the family. In private, Catherine grew weary of being cast as the foil in Meghan's ongoing narrative of victimhood. Even parenting styles became a battlefield. At family gatherings, Meghan's more relaxed approach, letting children roam and speak freely, contrasted with Catherine's structured discipline. Small differences in how they managed their kids' interactions occasionally resulted in sharp exchanges that others tried to smooth over. William, for his part, attempted to be the peacemaker. He urged Catherine to give it time and Meghan to focus on the bigger picture, but each year the space between them widened. Catherine began declining casual invitations involving the Sussexes. Meghan noticed, and her resentment hardened. By 2024, the cordial facade was crumbling. Meghan's public statements about telling her truth and criticism of the system landed like veiled shots at the family, and by extension, Catherine. In William's eyes, it was becoming harder to ignore. Everyone close to them knew the next time these 2 women were forced into the same room, years of grievances would collide. The only question was when, and whether either of them would hold back. The setting could not have been more solemn. A private memorial to honor a beloved family member, attended only by a select group of royals and their closest confidants. The guest list was intentionally small to minimize distractions. Prince Harry had been invited, but when word came that he planned to bring Meghan, palace aides hesitated. After lengthy discussions, William reluctantly agreed. It would be awkward, but he hoped the significance of the day would keep tempers in check. On the morning of the event, Catherine dressed with her usual understated elegance, aware that every detail would be noticed. Meghan arrived later, in a sharp, tailored outfit that immediately drew attention. Witnesses noted her cool, perfunctory greeting to Catherine, a small nod without a smile. Catherine returned the gesture, and for a brief moment, it seemed both women were committed to civility. But tension simmers in subtle ways, the way people position themselves in a room, the order in which they speak, the topics they choose to emphasize. Throughout the gathering, Meghan engaged warmly with some guests, but noticeably avoided Catherine's direct orbit. Catherine, for her part, remained gracious but distant. The pivotal moment came during an informal conversation in a smaller side room. Meghan, speaking to a small cluster, commented on the performative nature of certain royal appearances. Some people, she said pointedly, are more concerned with curating a perfect image than addressing real problems. The remark was not shouted, but it was delivered clearly enough for Catherine, who was passing nearby, to hear every word. Catherine stopped, turned, and with a calm but icy tone, asked Meghan what exactly she meant. Meghan's half-smile answer, "If the shoe fits," was enough to signal her intent. The air between them thickened instantly. Catherine, who almost never engaged in open conflict, decided she would not let this one slide. "Undermining each other publicly or privately does nothing for the family," she said evenly. Meghan's retort was immediate. "Telling the truth isn't undermining. Pretending everything's fine is." A few aides exchanged glances, realizing they were witnessing something dangerous. This was no mild disagreement. This was years of buried tension surfacing in real time. Someone discreetly moved toward the door, possibly to summon William. By the time he arrived, Catherine and Meghan had shifted closer, their voices low but taut. Words had turned to subtle accusations, and neither seemed willing to back down. It was the first time in years they had spoken so openly about their grievances, and it was about to explode. When William stepped into the room, the atmosphere was suffocating. Meghan stood with her shoulders squared, her hands gesturing sharply as she spoke. Catherine stood tall but rigid, her eyes fixed on Meghan with a steadiness that was more defiance than diplomacy. The first words William heard stopped him in his tracks, Meghan saying, "Maybe if you spent less time perfecting your photo ops and more time being a real sister-in-law, we wouldn't be here." Catherine's response was immediate, her voice still calm but cutting. "And maybe if you respected the institution you married into, you wouldn't be tearing it apart." William's jaw tightened. This was not the guarded language royals used behind closed doors. This was raw. Meghan turned toward him and pressed on. "You've let this go on for years, William. Your wife treats me like I'm an outsider, and you've done nothing." Catherine stepped forward slightly, her composure beginning to fray. "I have defended you more times than you will ever know, Meghan, but you keep crossing lines and then calling yourself the victim." William raised a hand to quiet them, but Meghan spoke over him, her voice edged with accusation. "Your mother would have seen through this act, William. She would have seen the truth about your perfect image." That was it, the breaking point. Invoking Diana's name in that way, in that moment, was unforgivable. William's expression hardened in an instant. His voice, when it came, was low and unshakable. "Enough. This ends now." Harry appeared in the doorway, sensing the escalation. He moved toward Meghan, but William's gaze was fixed on her. "You need to leave," he said. "Now." Meghan's eyes widened, as if she hadn't expected him to go that far. "Are you serious?" she asked. William didn't blink. "Yes, this isn't just today. This is every slight, every attack, every time you've tried to turn this family into your stage. You are not welcome here." Silence followed. Meghan glanced at Harry, who looked caught between outrage and disbelief. Aides stepped forward, their expressions professional but tense, ready to escort her out. Meghan turned sharply, her heels echoing against the marble floor as she left the room without looking back. For a long moment, no one moved. The damage was done. And for William, the decision that had been building in his mind for years now seemed inevitable. When the confrontation ended and Meghan's heels had vanished into the distance, William didn't return to the memorial. He didn't mingle. He didn't smooth things over with guests. Instead, he turned directly to one of his senior aides and said 3 words, "My study, now." Within the hour, a small, hand-picked group gathered in the private warmth of William's office. The blinds were drawn. Catherine sat silently near the fireplace, her hands folded in her lap, her face pale but composed. Around them were 2 of William's most trusted advisors, a security liaison and one senior courtier who had served under both Queen Elizabeth and King Charles. William began by asking for a detailed account from every witness in the room where the fight had happened. The versions varied only in small details, the substance of Meghan's remarks, the tone, the sequence of interruptions, but the core facts were undisputed. Meghan had directly insulted Catherine's character, implied her public standing was false, and, worst of all, used Diana's name as a weapon. To William, this was not a momentary lapse in judgment. It was the final confirmation of a pattern he had long feared: Meghan's willingness to challenge the royal family's internal boundaries, not in private to find resolution, but in ways that would inevitably fuel the outside world's appetite for scandal. "I've let too much slide," William admitted, glancing at Catherine, "for the sake of peace, for the sake of appearances. But this is not something I can allow to happen again." The discussion turned quickly to consequences. A temporary distancing, a formal written warning. Someone suggested privately requesting that Meghan avoid family events for the next year. William shook his head. "We've been here before. She comes back and it starts again. My responsibility is to my wife, my children, and the stability of the crown. There won't be a next time." The words that followed were both shocking and measured. Meghan Markle, by William's directive, would no longer be welcome at any royal function, public or private, for the rest of his lifetime. Not as a guest, not as part of Harry's +1, not even at unofficial gatherings on royal estates. The order was not to be framed as a formal royal decree, which could entangle the decision in political or legal debate. Instead, it would be communicated discreetly as a personal boundary from the Prince of Wales. Security would be informed, guest lists quietly updated, and invitations from any branch of the family would go through William's office first. There was silence after he spoke. One advisor warned this could irreparably damage his relationship with Harry. William's reply was immediate. "My brother is a grown man. He can make his choices, but I will not have my wife disrespected in her own home again." By the time the meeting ended, the machinery of the royal household was already moving. Emails drafted, calls placed, instructions given. The decision was set in stone. In that moment, William wasn't just a protective husband. He was a future king drawing a line no one would cross. News of the confrontation didn't stay contained for long. The first reports were vague. Royal tensions resurface, private disagreement at family gathering. But within days, leaks began to fill in the blanks. Phrases like heated exchange and personal remarks appeared in headlines. Soon after, the word ban entered the narrative. In Montecito, the Sussex camp reportedly went into crisis mode. Meghan's team considered issuing a statement, but Harry advised caution, at least publicly. Privately, however, there was talk of setting the record straight in a controlled interview. Some speculated that legal options were discussed, though pursuing them risked exposing more unflattering details. Public reaction was split, but shifting. Meghan retained her staunch supporters, who argued she'd been pushed out from the beginning. But for many, sympathy leaned toward Catherine. Images of the Princess of Wales, smiling through recent engagements despite the storm, painted her as the dignified figure rising above drama. Inside the palace, there was a noticeable tightening of the inner circle. Invitations were vetted more closely. Leaks seemed to dry up. William and Catherine appeared more united than ever, their joint appearances exuding a quiet but unmistakable message: stability. Royal commentators debated the long-term implications. Some warned that the rift with Harry might now be permanent. Others suggested this was a calculated move by William to draw a firm line before ascending the throne. Either way, the ban became one of the most discussed royal controversies in recent years. And for Meghan, the reality was clear. Her physical presence within royal walls was no longer an option. Whatever bridges had once existed were now not just burned, but reduced to ash. In the long history of the British monarchy, family disputes are nothing new, but a lifetime ban, delivered not by a reigning monarch, but by the heir himself, is almost unheard of. William's decision to exclude Meghan Markle for life is more than a personal vendetta. It's a statement about the kind of future king he intends to be. For Catherine, it was a moment of painful vindication. Years of measured silence, of biting her tongue in the name of unity, had ended in a single confrontation. The cost was high, but the result was clear. She would no longer be the silent target of whispered criticisms or strategic jabs. For Harry, the decision puts him in an impossible position, torn between loyalty to his wife and the last fragile thread connecting him to his brother. For Meghan, it cements her outsider status, perhaps permanently. And for the public, it's yet another chapter in a saga that blends tradition, personality, and the unyielding weight of the crown. Will Meghan retaliate? Will Harry attempt to negotiate a reversal? Or will this be the final, unhealed wound between two brothers and their wives? The palace may hope for quiet, but history suggests that when the House of Windsor closes one door, another scandal is already on its way to opening.